Previously, we were discussing about the promotional tools associated with various African cooperatives. Under that heading, we were dealing with education and training, management system developments, and organization development. So, let us discuss some of the best practices that were followed for the upliftment of cooperatives in Africa. Next area, best practices. By the term best practices means what are the steps and methods that are implemented or followed in various cooperatives in Africa so as to improve its performance or development. Primus inter pares. It's a foreign term. It means, as per this concept, for cooperative development reforms should be implemented at grassroots level. That means various steps has to be taken from the basic level. Donors are required to support cooperative reforms with technical assistance, financial assistance at regional and national levels. Usually the cooperatives in Africa is supported by donor support agencies, and it is a duty as part of best practices. It is a duty of donors to provide all sort of assistance to the various cooperatives that are working in regional and national levels, and that too under the reforms for the upliftment of cooperatives in Africa. So as per the best practices, certain reforms has been implemented for the effective working of cooperatives, and within that reforms donors were providing various sorts of assistance, and such reforms should target initially from the base level. Base level means grassroots level. From the base level only measures can be implemented effectively. Simply issuing plans or policies for a cooperative as a whole doesn't create much effect on the working of the cooperatives. In order to have an effective working condition or effective cooperative movement, reforms and steps has to be implemented from the base level or grassroots level. International Labour Organization, otherwise known as ILO, has designed and implemented cooperative reforms in Africa. So the entire activities with regard to the best practices is termed as Primus inter pares. It's a foreign term that represents implementation of various reforms for the upliftment and effective working of cooperatives in Africa. Next one, organization of producers. In order to stabilize the jobs and to maintain equipment and infrastructure financed through sustainable investment into agricultural and rural development by setting up self-reliant producers associations is known as organization of producers. As the term suggests, it is a group of producers who are self-reliant and self-sufficient, who have taken necessary investments in the field of cooperative movement so as to provide sufficient technical assistance in the form of equipments and infrastructure so as to stabilize the working of the cooperatives in Africa. So that group of team or that particular group of producers is known as organization of producers, and it is also one of the best practices for effective working of cooperatives in Africa. So under this there are some rules for the effective working of organization of producers. The rules are: the producers must be associated to all steps from start to the end. That is the only way to take out the maximum commitment from them. That's why there's a rule that producers must be effectively participate from the beginning to the end, then they will have a feeling that it is their responsibility for the successful implementation or successful operation of the cooperative movement. Next one, common goals must be the foundation stone. The meaning is that common goals as made or defined by the members must be the foundation stone of the producers organization. Apart from achieving certain amount of profits during a financial period or the target of achieving certain revenue or income during a certain period, the goals must be set in such a way that it should be the foundation stone of the cooperative movements. Because by achieving those goals, the cooperative movement or whatever the cooperative type of cooperative, they will never fail. Rather than making a simple goal, plan and implement a goal that leads to a foundation stone for these organizations. Next one, responsibility of providing system development, training and advisory services must be left with NGOs, development projects or 11 government structures. As I have mentioned earlier, producers should be participated from beginning till end. The goals must be the foundation stone. All these points are correct. The thing is that whenever the activities relating to system development or training of the workers or leaders and other advisory services, these are very delicate area. These should be done by NGOs, government organizations or developmental projects or any other government structures, rather than providing all these services by these producers. These producers may not be perfect or skilled in these specific areas. So producers should participate from beginning till end. They can set goals that may be considered as the foundation stone, but areas such as system development, training activities, advisory services, that should be done by some other expert parties. It may be a government agencies, it will be a non-government agencies, or it may be international agencies, because these areas are delicate areas and these should be done perfectly. And the producers, it's not a fault of the producers may not be skilled with that area. They may have the will and the enthusiasm to work for the effective performance of the cooperative movement, but they may not be skilled in these areas. So these should be handled by some other expert agencies. These organizations are preferably to be set up within natural boundaries. By natural boundaries means it should be implemented in some specific areas, like in a junction. Junction means specifically a large junction, or it may be a village, or it may be a taluk, or it may be a district, likewise. So it should be implemented in a specific area. It should not be shared within different villages or different places. If it is concentrating in a particular area, it should cover that particular village. It should not mix one village with another. If they concentrate, usually cooperatives in Africa usually concentrate in villages. So if these activities or plans are going to be implemented it should be implemented in a particular village, rather than mixing and clumping different villages. Why they are setting a rule like that? If the area is limited, they can work efficiently and effectively. If the area is large, their area of operation will also be a hectic activity and they may not be able to concentrate in a larger area. If the area is less, they can concentrate effectively. If the area is large, it will be very difficult. That is why they have implemented such a rule. So these are the rules with regard to organization of producers as a part of best practices. Next one, capacity building in support institutions. The development programs by the government or the activities or programs by the donors should focus on strengthening technical capacity local support organization. It is only possible through technically skilled multi and bilateral agencies. So, for the capacity building of various cooperative institutions or organizations, capacity building means their effectiveness, or a cooperative society can effectively work or participate well if they have technical skill or technical capacity as well as financial strength. So, various development programs by the government and donors always focus on strengthening the technical capacity of local support organization. Usually in various cooperative movements in Africa, they may be assisted by various local organizations. So such organizations should concentrate mainly on strengthening the technical capacity. In Africa, usually these support organizations are seen involved in cooperative promotion without having required technical capacity. That is why these government and donors are concentrating on that particular area. Usually these local support organizations will not have this technical capacity, and the main source of help or assistance of a cooperative movement or a society will be these local support organizations. So in order to solve that issue, the government and donors should focus on strengthening the technical capacity of local support organizations, because a local support organization without having much technical capacity will result in failure of cooperatives. So to avoid this, various multi and bilateral agencies has been appointed for providing technical assistance to local support agencies. But again, there is one issue. As I have mentioned here, local support organization will not have technical supports. So for that, various skilled and multi and bilateral agencies will be appointed to provide technical assistance. The thing is that they won't give the services for free. You have to pay something for their services. Usually their fees or expenses will be unaffordable. So that idea will not be effectively implemented. So in that case, various agencies will develop their own plans and policies. Usually it will be a government agency or a donors agency. They will develop their own agencies or plans or ideas so as to provide technical assistance to local support agencies. And why we are mentioning like that, why they have developed such an idea, is that because such an idea was successful in ACOPAM, which was technique applied in West Africa. So capacity building in support institutions is of great importance, and as I mentioned earlier, cooperatives will need such assistance from various local support organizations. Usually these may not have such a technical expertise. So the government and donors planned that skilled multilateral and bilateral agencies may be appointed to provide technical assistance. The thing is that they may charge huge expenses, and such unaffordable expenses may not be able to be dealt by these local support agencies or whatever it is. So the government and donors planned that they should develop their own agencies that provide technical assistance to local support agencies. And one such example was that ACOPAM, which was applied as a technique in West Africa. Next one, capital mobilization. As a term means, capital mobilization means raising capital or raising funds. That is a simple meaning of capital mobilization. Why there is a need for capital mobilization? Whatever the cooperative movement, whatever, whether it is a service society or a profit society, usually cooperatives are service society. In all cases, they need capital for effective working of the organization. So how they are raising capital? Savings and credit cooperatives are the best institution for mobilizing savings in rural areas and administering loans to small producers and consumers in a cost efficient way. Rural credit unions in Africa generate substantial net savings that can be used for lending to agricultural cooperatives. So we have learned about these agricultural cooperatives or savings cooperatives or credit cooperatives previously in our sessions, and as we are discussing about the capital mobilization, various cooperatives like mainly agricultural and marketing cooperatives raise their capital through savings and credit cooperative, because savings and credit cooperative as a term suggests their main aim is to raise funds or raise savings and thrift from cooperative members or customers. So savings and credit cooperatives will have sufficient amount of money as savings. Usually they will be operating in rural areas, and they provide loans and other credit facilities to other cooperatives or other small producers or consumers. So rural credit unions in Africa is the main source of providing capital to the various agricultural cooperatives. But there is an issue with that. The thing is that in Africa, agricultural cooperatives and marketing cooperatives are given more importance rather than other cooperatives by the government. And the issue persistent with agricultural cooperatives is that agricultural cooperatives can raise any amount of funds without collateral security. So if an agricultural cooperative raise or lend a loan amount from or credit from any other credit society, a credit cooperative or credit society, the thing is that the savings and credit society has to provide loan to the agricultural societies without any supporting security. That's it. There's an important issue, and there is a great risk factor with regard to the savings and credit cooperatives, because savings and credit cooperatives are raised funds from the consumers or members, and the same is provided to the agricultural cooperatives without any security. And the ultimate is that agricultural cooperatives are running at a loss in Africa. Not all the cooperatives, agricultural cooperatives are running in loss, but majority of the agricultural cooperatives are running at loss. So that is an issue persistent with savings and credit cooperatives as well as the agricultural cooperatives in Africa. So the savings and credit cooperative usually entertain only small and short-term loans that are demanded by the agricultural cooperative. Usually huge amounts of loans are not entertained by the savings and credit cooperatives, because they are not providing, means agricultural cooperatives are not offering or providing any collateral security. So that is with regard to capital mobilization with regard to savings and credit cooperatives as well as agricultural cooperatives. Next one, horizontal and vertical integration. We have gone through this integration system in one of our previous sessions. Horizontal and vertical integration generally improve the sustainability of the movement. It enhances autonomy and makes the cooperative independent in support services field. Donors can support formation of cooperative unions and federations by carrying out feasibility studies, designing appropriate management training, and providing seed capital. So these are the main points with regard to horizontal and vertical integration. I hope you all know what is meant by horizontal and vertical integration. We have learned about with a flowchart in the previous sessions. By implementing a horizontal and vertical integration, it helps in maintaining autonomy and makes the cooperative independent. Autonomy and independence means, if you remember the flowchart, you can see that there is an apex in the top and various regional levels at the bottom, and in between these there will be different support levels. So autonomy means here there is an apex level who is controlling another set of levels, and the second set of levels will be controlling the base levels. So there is an autonomy with regard to the control and operations. One will be providing necessary plans and policies that are implemented in different levels. So there exists an autonomy. And with regard to independence means, within this level also there are different sectors like agriculture societies, marketing societies, fisheries societies, likewise at various regional levels as well as base levels. So they are self-sufficient and independent. They need not have to depend upon other non-cooperative societies or other non-cooperative movements. And at the same time, donors and supporting agencies will provide various feasibility studies and designing appropriate management training and providing seed capital. Management training and capital is of great importance. Management training is required because there are different levels: top level, middle level, low level, as the method which we have learned in the management. So sufficient management training will be needed at leadership levels. And capital, as far as we have learned about the commerce activities, for every sort of business, whether it is a service activity or a profit activity, every activity required capital. Next one, issues faced by non-agricultural worker owned cooperatives and ESOP. Before we go into the issues faced by non-agricultural worker-owned cooperatives and ESOP, we need to find what is the difference between a worker-owned cooperative and client-owned cooperatives, or what is the position of these cooperatives in Africa. There are two categories of cooperatives working in Africa: workers-owned cooperatives and client-owned cooperatives. We have learned about workers-owned cooperatives and different cooperatives that working under the same head, and we also learned about client-owned cooperatives. So there are two different categories. Usually in Africa, client-owned cooperatives are given more importance rather than workers-owned cooperatives, because workers-owned cooperatives is considered as a socialism based activity, and usually it is neglected by the state government or supporting government agencies. And every time the government or whatever the supporting agencies always supports a client-owned cooperatives, even though the workers-owned cooperatives have provided large number of job opportunities not only in Africa but also around the world, they are neglected by the concerned authorities, and the client-owned cooperatives are given more importance. Because client-owned cooperatives usually support governments or the state that are controlled by the ruling party, unlike the workers-owned cooperative. Workers-owned cooperatives are having a uniform ideology, and they are not supporting any sort of ruling party or a state government. That is one of the main issue why the workers-owned cooperatives are neglected. Still, even though the workers-owned cooperatives have provided a large number of job opportunities or job creations within Africa, it also faces many issues. They are: the government agencies and donors resist new ideas in cooperative development. Usually, new ideas of cooperative development will be implemented by workers-owned cooperatives rather than a client-owned cooperatives. Cooperative acts are usually designed for client-owned cooperatives, because client-owned cooperatives usually are supported by the governments or donor agencies. And these parastatal agencies or government agencies always implement acts or cooperative acts that are supporting client-owned cooperatives. In Africa, Cooperative development agencies are ill-equipped to promote non-agricultural workers' cooperatives. Usually in Africa, there are more number of agricultural cooperatives rather than other type of traditional and non-traditional cooperatives. And the thing is that agricultural cooperatives are running at a loss. And the cooperative development agencies are not fully equipped to provide necessary support to other type of cooperatives, otherwise known as non-agricultural workers cooperatives, those cooperatives that are not coming under the agricultural activity. That is an issue with regard to the workers owned cooperatives. Trade unions have lesser interest for worker owned cooperatives because trade unions are supported by client owned cooperatives rather than a workers owned cooperatives. So as far as a trade union is concerned, client owned cooperatives are beneficial for them, so they are not supporting worker owned cooperatives. Lack of strategies for the efficient working of the non-agriculture worker owned cooperatives. So these are the main issues with regard to the non-agriculture worker owned cooperatives. Not only in non-agricultural area, usually worker owned cooperatives are facing issues when compared to the client owned cooperatives. Here we have discussed about non-agriculture worker owned cooperative, means various cooperatives that are working under areas that are not coming under the agricultural activity. It may be a fisheries activity, or it may be a handicraft activity, it may be a credit activity, it may be savings activity likewise. So these are the various areas that comes under the cooperatives in Africa. We will discuss about the further activities with regard to cooperative movement in Africa in the coming sessions.